Hey everyone, Sujan Patel here. Welcome to another episode of Shake Sales. I'm excited here to talk to Scott Leese. Scott is a veteran SaaS sales leader. He's run and built six sales organizations. Currently running Scott Leese Consulting and probably like 10 other endeavors around helping the sales community kind of grow. Scott, welcome, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate
it. It's really funny. We're actually like probably down the street from each other right now, in general, but it takes a video interview for us to kind of hang out sometimes. But so Scott, what I want to talk today about is really the community and community's role in sales. I know you've got a ton of communities. You got Thursday Night Sales, GTM United. What else do you got going on in the community world?
Surf and sales, and for a while I ran my own Patreon community for about 2 years. So
nice.
I've been deep in this like micro community world for a while now.
Love it. So we were talking before we started here recording. I'm like, this has got to help you somehow, right?
Yeah.
How does community play a role in your sales funnel and or just in sales in general?
Yeah, for me personally, let's say people are in the community and then they get exposure to who I am just as a person, my personality. So is there like a culture fit there, for lack of a better word? Mm-hmm. They get to hear me riff on different topics. So they kind of see how I think about sales and business and sales leadership and things like that. Right. And then they get exposure to all the different things that I do. So somebody who's in, let's say, Thursday Night Sales, which was a free community that we ran for like 3 years, they hear about my surf and sales events. They hear about my GTM United program. They hear about my consulting business. And so they go tell their bosses. And then some of those people come back to me as like a consulting lead, or somebody buys a ticket to surf and sales. So all of these kind of communities can just be like a big lead magnet for you. It also is super helpful as a connector, so if like some of my friends like Sujan comes to me and says, hey, I'm looking for a VP of sales, like I'm happy to, comp you if you know anybody or whatever. I'm like, okay, let me make one post real quick and I've got, 24 applicants for you and stuff like that. Right. So you get a lot of exposure to community, for lack of a better word, a big network. And that network is becoming more and more important, I think, for salespeople as tools like, the telephone and cold email outreach and stuff like that, maybe are getting a little harder than they used to be 5, 10, 20 years ago. So if you've got a bigger network and you're a seller today, you have the ability to go to that network and say, hey, Sujan, I'm trying to get a hold of this guy, Kevin Dorsey. Like, I think you know him, you're connected to him on LinkedIn. Do you know him well enough to make an intro? And if you and I have a good relationship and you trust me, then you'll be like, okay, yeah, let me see if Kevin's open to talking to you about your solution. And then you can broker that intro. And there's more and more deals being kind of opened up in this kind of near bound, network-led growth type way.
Yeah, I love it. I think, so I'll tell you my exposure to your world and ecosystem. So my previous head of sales, Louise, went to one of your surf and sales event. And he's like, we got to join your Patreon community back in the day. So we did. I don't know what it cost, but we paid you for a while. And then, I was like, we need to hire a sales consultant. And Louise was like, we got to get Scott. He's already given me blah, blah, blah on these Thursday night sales webinars, or like, it's not a webinar, but like these Zooms during COVID. And then I was like, okay, cool. We don't have the budget right now, blah, blah, blah. 12 months later, I run into you again because I pinged somebody and they're like, Scott was my head of sales at, I forgot the company, but like it was like 7 ways to Sunday. And I'm like, immediately, I was like, yeah, we got to go talk, because like, forget the sales pitch. What do you cost and when can we start? Because we already knew the trust. So I feel like that bottoms up approach almost that you're doing with the community and the value you're giving to individual sales reps or sales leaders just building that trust all the way to where like it's so high that you don't even have to say a word, and I'm like, I'm already gonna buy from you, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal, right? And that starts with going back 20 years and doing the job, right?
Yep.
I mean, I was essentially a head of sales, VP of sales, whatever you want to call it, 6 times. And 5 of those times were very successful. You know,
Yeah.
three of those companies have already had an exit. And one of them that hasn't had an exit yet will probably be my biggest exit of all of them. So I've done this kind of job of helping companies scale from 0 to 100. I've been in those trenches. I know exactly what it's like, and I've done it successfully, not just once. It's not like a
Yeah.
one wonder like Vanilla Ice or something like that, right? It's like I've done this a few times, right? And so there's that credibility, and then there's just the hopefully the credibility and awareness of this guy is everywhere, right? Like he's
Mm.
just helping this person, he's helping that person, he's helping the whole community, he's doing this for free or at, minimal cost. Like you talked about my Patreon group. That thing was like $10 a month, right? It's just like
Yeah. No brainer.
throwaway kind of money, right? And you're looking at it from this long tail of like, let me kind of, warm Sujan up if Sujan's my prospect for like, I don't know, a year, 2 years or whatever, right? Until
Yep.
the time is right where you come to me, like you said, and it's really just like, hey, remind me all the things you can help me with. Cause like, here's my problems and like, what's that gonna cost? Right.
Yep.
I've
Yeah.
managed to run my consulting business for 4 years doing zero outbound. Everything comes, into me this way. And I think that
Yeah.
that's the right way to build trust, to build value, and frankly, to build like your own kind of solo business.
Absolutely. My background's in marketing, so I think all the things you're saying, I kind of translate to marketing. You got all of these things you've got, various communities and low friction, low dollar amount, call to actions, frankly, gets you all these leads and people in your communities where you're able to nurture them with consistency, right? Thursday Night Sales has been going on for what, like 5 years, 4 years?
Yeah, since the beginning of COVID.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So but like consistently, right? Um, and you continue to drip these people with value, and you're just happen to be there when they're ready to buy, right? And we all know like the great sales reps, and especially if they're in your community and they're learning, at some point they're going to be the decision maker, right? Not all of them, but some of them, right? So
Yeah,
you're kind of there when you're growing along with this
that's right.
person's career, and then boom, I need your
Right.
help.
That's your job is, I mean, I have seen my job for a long time is to help this person get to wherever they're trying to go next.
Yep.
Right? And so a lot of people have kind of frankly made fun of me, including some of my friends and colleagues, for just like taking random phone calls from brand new SDRs and this kind of stuff. And I sort of have the philosophy of that kid who's trying to figure this out is at some point going to be a founder or a VP, a C-suite person at some point in time that will have a lot of
Yep.
authority. So I'm not going to discredit them because they can't do something for me right now today. You never know who you might be able to help and who might be able to help you. So I've always been very open to um, just having chats and answering people's questions. I don't even know how many messages a day on LinkedIn. I respond to every single one of them. Every one,
Nice.
unless it's like a blatant spammy kind of,
Yeah.
hit. But, I had some kid messaging me 3 or 4 times last night, like 11 o'clock. And he kept being apologetic, just saying, hey, I don't know when I'm ever going to talk to you again. I'm sorry for asking so many questions. I'm just like, dude, don't worry about it, man. It takes me
Nice.
no time to
Yeah.
reply. And maybe something happens one day and that person remembers that I was helpful to them, and then it comes back around, right?
Yeah. And so as you're talking, I was doing some research on how many sales consultants there are. There are over 100,000 sales consultants.
Jeez.
And I can't even get the full number. I just like stopped, right? But 100,000 sales consultants. Okay. There are probably a dozen with a community. There is only a handful, if not you're the only one, that has a community and is actually responding to folks, right? And so that to me, when I think of like what you're doing, I look at this as like you're able to stand out just be about being authentic by doing these various things as a sales consultant because no one else is putting in the work, right? Um,
Well, we all have to have a advantage of some sort or something, to stand out. Um, and, if there's 100,000 consultants out there, I would hope that my background in having done the role so many times helps me stand out. I would hope that having all of these different communities and access points to me and the way that I engage with people, from responding to DMs to coming on people's podcasts, all that kind of stuff. I would hope that one of my big differentiators is my accessibility and my responsiveness, right? And yeah, it is a crowded field, man. Every day I feel like I talk to somebody and they're like, yeah, so I quit my, sales job and I'm doing consulting. And I'm like, dude, you've been a sales rep for like 6 months. Like what is happening? You know?
yeah, I feel you.
Yeah. So, you put in the work for as long as it takes until you feel like you've kind of mastered this arena. And then
Yeah.
you just try to help as many people as you can. You try to be in as many places, at once as you can without going crazy. And, hopefully people find their way to you. And if you've done good work, the word of mouth will spread.
Love it. Love it. And I think this building community for who you're selling to, in this case, your customer is a sales or salespeople or sales reps or the founder looking, into the topic of sales. But this exact thing you're doing could apply to any industry, right? You could build like the best, IT, like blah, blah, blah community, right? Doesn't matter what it is. The strategy will still work. Now, if you're building a community for plumbers, it might not work as well. It'll be very different, but it could still work where you continue to add value. So I want to end it with one more question, one last question around if you're a sales rep, building your career, growing your career. What's one thing or things you would recommend for them to get into, I guess, progress into the manager role? I know you have a whole book on this.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote a book called From Rep to Manager about this. The first thing is just get really good at your job. And don't just like hit your quota one time and think that you're ready. It's like, you've got to be able to do this consistently over time. Then I think you've got to be able to help your neighbor, help your colleagues. And you're not getting paid for it. It's just like, Sujan is my buddy and I want him to sell well as well. So let me kind of teach him what's working, for me. Then I think it becomes, what can I do to make my manager's job above me a little bit easier? Is there any kind of project or something that I can do? Can I run some analysis? Can I build a report? Can I assist with, posting a job or writing a job description or whatever? And I think just always being like open to changes, especially in an early stage startup where things are moving all the time. So you're this kind of optimistic, open person when it comes to all the changes and disruptions and stuff that can happen in startups. So you're viewed as somebody that doesn't resist, somebody who's open to and willing to kind of, okay, this is where we are. We're going to figure this kind of thing out. And investing in the relationships, both sideways at your kind of peer level and in those relationships 1 and 2 steps above you, even into different departments. That's how you kind of like politically start to build a consensus that, hey, this guy Scott seems pretty good. Because what happens is, if you're a rep, that VP of sales is like, hey, I'm thinking about moving Scott into a sales manager role. And you have those conversations in exec meetings. Like, imagine if the VP of CS is like, oh, hell no. That guy's a pain in my neck. He does all this stuff wrong. Imagine if the VP of marketing is like, no, that's not a good move. you don't want that, right? So you as a rep should invest in some of those relationships and take care of people in CS and take care of people in marketing because they might have influence on whether or not you move up and when you move up. So those are just some of the things that, I cover in the book and like people should work on, I think. But it all starts with, please, for the love of God, be really good at your current role first.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, most people in sales in general, you get a good month and you, you're optimistic and you think, this is my good month times 12. And I've made it, right? Where
Yeah.
that's day one, that's month one,
Yeah.
or quarter one.
And you know what? A common mistake that leadership makes too is they dangle the carrot straight away after somebody had one good month.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
true.
one good month rep starts to get distracted and they start
Mm,
to think, oh, I need to prove that I can be a leader. Right. And they start focusing on some of these ancillary things and drop the ball on focusing on their regular job. And all of a sudden their performance goes down. And then all of a sudden you don't have somebody who's about to be a leader, nor do you even have your top performer anymore because you've distracted them with this carrot
yeah,
that they weren't ready for yet. Right.
I've made that mistake many times. Took me twice to figure it out. It's
Yeah.
like, maybe this person's just bad. Anyways, Scott, where can people go to learn more, find you, join your community?
Yeah. As far as community goes, the two that are the most active right now is gtmunited.com as well as surfinsales.com. Best place to find me is on LinkedIn. You can just type in Scott Leese and hit me a DM, and I'm happy to respond to anybody who does that.
And I can attest, you actually do respond to all your messages, no matter how big or small the question. So thank you for helping drive this community forward.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.